As many of you know, I grew up in Philadelphia. In fact, I was born at the Philadelphia Naval Hospital to a career Navy man whose family spanned all the way back in the armed forces continuously till since 1864. There's a reason that the Nances ran away from slavery, the two brothers, Greene and William Henry, because they saw that the United States, for all of its imperfections, was always going to be a land of opportunity where they could move forward and try to get the opportunity to be part of the more perfect union. My family took this very seriously, so seriously that we protected and defended the Constitution of the United States through some of the worst times in American history. Greene and William Henry fought in the Civil War. William Henry, or Hank as he was known, fought in the Indian Wars, where he not only killed a man at one point in a melee that took place in his barracks, but he also died for the country in service and is buried in a cemetery in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. The other Nances, from the Spanish-American War to World War I, World War II, to my father, who ran away in 1944 at the age of 15 and joined the Navy in time to take part in some of the largest invasions in the Pacific, all had a dream that America and its Constitution would always move forward. And if they worked to protect and defend not only the family, but the belief of the American experiment, that they would prosper. They always believed that America would be a country of flaws, but again, would always move forward. I had this same feeling when I grew up in Philadelphia on the streets of where the Declaration of Independence and major parts of our government infrastructure, the Constitution of the United States, were conceptualized, drafted, and executed into the Constitution that we have today. The reason that I'm giving you this long-winded recap of my family history is because I'm here to announce that as of today, January 20th, the United States has taken its first step into dictatorship. Donald Trump has managed to jury rig himself a coalition and so split the Democrats that he was reelected president, even though he is a 34 times convicted felon. He has been civilly adjudicated as a rapist, and that he is a corrupt principal who is using the government and has used the government to make money. Now he's supported by the very people that I wrote about in my book, The Plot to Destroy Democracy, the oligarchy in the world of the richest men in the United States and the world who backed him and are funding him to the point where he no longer has to rely on his previous ally, the dictator Vladimir Putin of Russia. The United States is now an autocracy. It is no longer a democracy. But wait, Malcolm, that's crazy talk. I mean, we just saw an inauguration and a peaceful transfer of power. That's because 4 years ago, there was not a peaceful transfer of power. There was a coup d'etat planned, executed, and they almost got away with it. Donald Trump has spent 4 years as the most documented liar in American history, a pathological liar clawing his way back to power with the richest men in the world. That is an autocracy. The only question is, does he go straight into dictatorship? Well, I am on a hiatus right now. I am in the middle of a Doctor Who marathon because I am taking part in the great inauguration. But I have already heard one thing that's disturbed me. Donald Trump is going to sign an executive order nullifying an amendment to the Constitution. the 14th Amendment and the right to birthright citizenship. The same birthright citizenship that his son, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric were all born under in the United States. The same birthright citizenship that Vivek Ramaswamy was born with in the United States. And so Donald Trump is going to eliminate parts of the Constitution even as I'm speaking. If you think that this is no longer a joke, if you sat out the election or you didn't encourage people to defend the Constitution as I begged before this election, then it is partly your fault. That America is now an autocracy and quite possibly going into a dictatorship puts us all in an unusual position. We all have to make a decision about how we are going to face this. Now, most Americans will just go to work and ignore it, and unless it directly affects them, like the plan to gut Medicaid and Medicare, then they generally won't care. Not only that, the right wing is starting to buy the entire global propaganda machine and the news media. The Washington Post, the LA Times, the New York Times are all falling under the thrall of their billionaire owners. The Washington Post went so far as to change its masthead from "Democracy Dies in Darkness" to, reveling or thralling stories that are relevant to all Americans. We are about to enter the darkest time in American history since 1860. And I only hope and pray that this does not descend into the violence that is very possible when you send police, law enforcement, National Guard, and the armed forces of the United States to round up 20 million people Gestapo style. There will be violence. The funny thing is that I am a true loyalist to the Constitution. I am a true loyalist to what the American experiment means. When I walk around Independence Hall, I feel it. I feel the American experiment in my heart. When I see Washington Square and the words above George Washington, where over 1,000 soldiers who died in the Revolution are buried alongside of the slaves that built the city of Philadelphia. And I read the words, "Many men have died in darkness." Because freedom is a light in which many men have died in darkness, is what George Washington said. And we may be entering a period of new American darkness, where money, oligarchy, and control of the news media is about to turn America into a dictatorship. Interestingly enough, I have in front of me, this is enough to make you want to drink, these mugs, which I bought in Massachusetts a few years ago. They're made by a potter, Steinenhager Pottery from Connecticut, Griswold, Connecticut. And on these beautiful mugs done in the style of the American Revolution are quotes. And there's one by Phyllis Wheatley I'd like to read. "In every human breast, God has implanted the principle of which we call love of freedom. It is impatient of oppression and pants for deliverance." I hope that within your breast you find the principle of love of freedom, love of liberty, love of equality, love of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as it was written in my childhood home. Otherwise, this other mug will apply, as the first political cartoon ever drawn in the United States by Benjamin Franklin, another one of my citizen members, fellow citizens of Philadelphia. "Join or die." Donald Trump won 77 million votes. Joe Biden won 81 million. Kamala Harris won 76 million, and somehow 5 million of us decided to sit this election out. And so the American experiment is about to be destroyed. And I am calling on you, all of you, to choose one word in how you will approach this from this point onward. That word is defiance. Many of my political enemies are watching this podcast, and they're saying, oh, Malcolm Nance, he's out there trying to rile up the liberals, trying to make a grift. I'm never made $1 off of this. I certainly don't when it comes to my love of the Constitution. I gave my life to the defense of the Constitution. I risked my life many times in the defense of the Constitution. And I will be goddamned if I just sit back and roll over and let my love of my flag and my countrymen, 31% of whom are misguided at this point, who are in a cult, who are threatening us with weapons. I shall not stand for this. You should not stand for this. You need to stand up and be defiant. You need to stand up to this dictator, and we need to mobilize and be prepared. At every turn, every day, we do something to show our displeasure into this dictator's face. I'm going to read one of my favorite quotes. It's on another mug, but I don't have that mug. This quote is so powerful that when it was read on National Public Radio in 2017, MAGA Trump voters thought that liberals were writing propaganda and attacking Donald Trump. The words I'm going to read to you were written by the Committee of Five, the men who were tasked to draft the Declaration of Independence, and these words came from Thomas Jefferson. A prince whose character, thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant, is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Donald Trump has committed acts and is going to commit acts in this very moment, is committing acts which define a tyrant. He is unfit to be the ruler of a free people, which is why MAGA, their strategy is to enslave us ideologically, isolate us by separating us from fact and reimagining the fiction as our new reality. I will not stand for it. You should not stand for it. I dedicated my life to the defense of this country. I will not have it. It shall not pass me. I will stand and confront this at every turn. I don't expect many of you to set your resistance posture to flamethrower the way I have. But I do expect you to cherish that love of country, the love of freedom, as Phyllis Whatley said. I hope you keep it in your breast. And when the time comes to voice your opinion, to voice your displeasure, you need to embrace the most important of the four freedoms that Franklin Delano Roosevelt reminded us of. We need to have freedom of want. No one should starve in America. We need to have the right of freedom of worship. We should live and put our children to bed free of fear. But most of all, we should be ready to stand up and embrace freedom of speech as the most cherished of all American traditions. Because with freedom of speech comes the right to assemble, the right to air your grievances, and the right to pray to your own God. God bless us. God bless you. God bless this country. And let's pray that we can be the guardrails that makes America what it was just a few hours ago. A nation of free people, not under the thrall of a 31% minority led by a dictator. I'll be back later in a Substack to give you some guidelines on how to defend yourself, your home, and your family using the laws that we have, preparing yourself for a chaotic, risky future. And I don't mean with guns. I mean learning to safeguard yourself in a time of chaos where disease could become rampant, prices could explode and skyrocket, where law enforcement, police, and the military may no longer be your allies, where government may truly become an oppressive machine, as it is in Russia and Hungary and China and North Korea, the states that Donald Trump so admires. I spit on this thought. It disgusts me as an American, and I am an American. And I wear this flag upside down because it is May Day. It is time to understand that this nation is floundering. We will not all go down alone. As my fellow citizen, fellow city mate Benjamin Franklin said, we will all hang together or we will surely hang separately. Stay tuned for the next Black Man Spy and the Special Intelligence newsletter.